And thank you very much indeed for that great introduction. It's absolutely lovely to be here today. And as you can see, I'm talking about the employer-employee relationship and how that's changed in the time of COVID-19, and obviously focusing on the gap and how we can deal with that gap between leaders, executives, and the workforce. It's a challenging time that we're facing. And the agenda that I'm going to try and look at very briefly in my 15 minutes I've got available is I'm going to look at the now of work. This used to be called the future of work, but I feel that we're now very much anchored into the future and the way that people have been talking about things for a while. I'll talk a little bit about the challenges, not necessarily the operational ones, but possibly some of those challenges that leaders are having to deal with. I'll focus a little bit on what are the behaviors that I've seen that drives effective leaders, particularly in transformational times, which is what I think we're facing. And then just sum it up with, a little simple roadmap, which hopefully may be of some help to you. So I want to talk a little bit about the now of work. As I've said, we've called it the future of work for the last 5 to 10 years, but I believe that the events of the last 6 months, which were completely unprecedented, have really made a lot of those trends and themes we've been talking about very present for today. So I think we've been in quite a reactive mode at the moment. We've been focusing on the well-being of the employees and the workforce, and there's no doubt that a number of the workforce elements are still quite overwhelmed by everything. They've either had to be laid off temporarily or, unfortunately for some, permanently. There are some who are working from home, some that are still working in the office or in the manufacturing base. And there are certainly new work patterns which we're all starting to try and get to grips with, whether it's remote working, using digital technology as a way of communicating and connecting with people, or just making sure that we're still aligned with what we're supposed to be doing. If we look at the reset that I think is quite important, we need to obviously focus on the connectivity. And for me, that's about how do we instill this environment of trust? How do we ensure that there's some openness and transparency when we're unfortunately having to make most of our interactions using technology, whether it's Zoom or whether it's Microsoft Teams or whatever software package you're using? There is a need for very purposeful leadership. And I've been talking to a lot of executives over the last 3 to 4 months, and I've very clearly had a message back that HR has been doing a great job in supporting managers, in supporting leaders, and helping them to try and set the direction and set the tone for how to deal with these difficult times. A cautionary word, I guess, from what I heard is that HR have stepped up, but they've responded by dealing with the things that we're very comfortable with, the operational things, the resourcing. And we need to make sure that we don't forget the more strategic and the more transformational activities that the HR function has to adopt if we're going to survive in the future world. There is undoubtedly digital technology everywhere. And it's something that, we're going to have to get very used to, and people are getting very familiar with it. And as we look forward to the future and we hope that the new normal, whatever that is, and however we describe it, what it looks like, we hope that we're able to deal with it. But I do think that one of the key trends that will emerge will be the employee experience. Fellow presenters have already talked at this conference, both yesterday and today, about the employee experience, how to do it, and how important it is as we look to the future. So what are the challenges that we've got? And if we look at, the 2020, 2021 challenges, there is one certainty, is that whatever the plan was for your organization, for your HR function, for whatever your leaders in their functions, whatever the plan was at the beginning of January 2020, it certainly isn't still relevant and appropriate for today because everything has changed. And so when I look at the challenges, I think there are 3 themes. If I was an executive and a leader, these are the 3 themes we need to think about. We've got the organizational challenges of productivity, the income growth and cost measures, which we need to very focus on. It's challenging times. People are having to be quite innovative and different about how we do things. And the customer experience has become paramount and will again becoming critically important about how have we dealt with our customers during these challenging times. And one of the most critical things for me is how does the organization ensure that there's workforce involvement and that the workforce is able to feel as if what it's saying is being listened to and is being appreciated. The transformational activity that some of you may already have been doing or will considering to doing, that's undoubtedly not going to go away. The automation and the need for job changes and job redesign is going to continue. And as I said, the employee experience roadmap, wherever you were on that, whether you were considering doing it, whether you're already partially through it, the experience that employees have is a critical part of what will make them stay and will make them perform in what is going to be a very challenging 6 months for us and beyond as we look into the new year. The capability of the workforce is going to be important. Do the managers and leaders have the right behaviors to deal with managing people from a distance? And have the employees managed to get to grips with the technological challenges and to be able to deal with different ways of operating? Whatever the organization is doing and is thinking, the leaders and the executives are going to have to think about, are we future-proofing our organization for success, not just for the end of the year, but for 2021 and beyond? So from an HR perspective, that means, have we got competency frameworks which are anchored in the behaviors that we're going to need in 2021? Or are they still anchored in the behaviors that we needed when we launched the model 3 or 4 years ago? Robust workforce planning is going to be vital in terms of understanding and working with finance about understanding cost implications and the resource implications as the structures and the jobs possibly get reshaped and realigned as we go forward. One of the key things that this pandemic has definitely raised is the issue of learning. It's undoubtedly a critical aspect of every employee's life in the future, whether you're learning new technology, new ways of doing things, or even possibly multitasking by doing a different type of activity to one that you were doing before. So the challenges from an executive's point of view are quite significant. But one of the things, how do we go and lessen that gap and that issue? Because they've got many, many different things to deal with. One of the things we've got to do and make sure is that change is done with workforce involvement. There is nothing worse than change being done to people. And that means that in the now of work, and also as we look to the future, we've got to both engage employees so that they have a great opinion about the organization, and that they also have a great experience, that they have a good opinion about their job and what it looks like. Now, from an individual point of view, research by Globoforce and IBM have indicated that these are the sort of the 5 key characteristics that drives, a passionate employee who has a great experience at work. So we need to make sure that leaders, managers, and HR practitioners are thinking and ensuring that jobs are being created with those elements within it. Purposeful leadership at all levels. This is not just executives, this is senior business leaders, mid-managers, and also team leaders. This is critical, is that there has got to be a purposeful leadership dictated and driven throughout the organization. That means that we're looking for trust, transparency, and openness, making sure that the workforce really understands what is happening and where they fit, and that they actually have a voice in providing feedback and feeling empowered to get on with things. Because remember, if we're multi-tasked in multi-different places, that means that we're having to rely on people to take the initiative and to do things that they believe is right. Leaders throughout all of this will have to focus on talent. They will have to make sure that people feel involved, engaged, and that they're most importantly being listened to. Now, from an organizational point of view, that means that we've got to think carefully about how we design it, how we design the jobs and the structures. There is no point just creating a cut and paste organizational design process, which will not work beyond 2 or 3 months. We've got to be carefully thinking about how we organize this ourselves to be successful, what the talent practices are that are most critical to that success, and how we can make the employee feel important and valued in all of this, whether it's through learning, whether it's through different career paths. But whatever it is, we have got a culture which is undoubtedly going to be driven by data and by technology to make sure that these things happen. Now, this is all very easy for me to say, but what are the sorts of critical priorities that the executive and the leaders beneath them are going to have to demonstrate? And this is, I've been working in leadership development now for over 30 years. And this has been the culmination and the evolution of what I think is critical and important. For ease of time, I'm just going to focus on the four headlines here. We need clarity. Leaders and managers need to be clear about what's happening, what their expectations are, and what they want people to deliver. They have to be taking people with them. They've got to excite people, inspire them, make them feel as if they're part of something that is going to be interesting and important to the employees as much as it is to the organization. The aspect of growth is vital. And these three elements that make up of it, trust, navigating people through the organization, and being what I call a talent magnet, in other words, attracting the very best people who want to work for you. These are the areas which are aspects which leaders and managers find difficult. These are behavioral changes which require a significant mindset change. But if there's one thing that we have definitely learned from this whole pandemic experience, is that the power of people and the power of talent is absolutely crucial. And so we have really got to make sure that these are things which we help our leaders and managers learn how to do. And that could well be a critical learning experience that they need to go through. The final thing is that we've got to be successful. We've got to drive change. We've got to drive results. We've got to drive execution. And more importantly, we've got to make sure that our customers are still with us and our customers still want to work with us and still use our products, our services, our solutions. It's no mean feat. It's no mean feat. But one of the things we've got to make sure is that we don't have the need to look back at 2020 and 2021 with regret and say, I wish we did this. I wish the leaders did that. We have all got a voice, and we've therefore got to make sure that we make it known and that the leaders and the executives are hearing what we say as HR practitioners and what the workforce are saying. We cannot enable or allow this opportunity to be missed. I think that there is a roadmap to be looked at here. So, we're in the react mode. So we're all assessing and deciding what to do. And we've been doing that for 3 or 4 months. And obviously there's been a huge imperative, I'm sure, on costs and productivity. But we need to be moving into the reset mode. We need to be looking into the future and thinking, what are the people strategies that are going to be appropriate to support the business in 2020 and 2021. We've got to be doing that. We've got to be supporting leaders to feel confident about what they're doing and how they're going to do it. And we've got to think about what changes need to be made, whether it's culturally, whether it's process-wise, or whether it's putting particular emphasis on certain elements which are more important than others. And then finally, we've got to really look into the renew, which is probably looking into 2021, and that may seem a long way away. But time flies, and we've got to consider what are the new routines and methods that we're going to have to adopt, both within the organization and also us as an HR function. How are we going to drive change? How are we going to support leaders and executives to do that? Because we have to provide an integrated set of solutions which make employees feel important and which drive better results and get us back to the levels of performance that we probably had in 2020 at the beginning of the year and certainly into last year. So as I sort of wrap up, I guess what I would say, we've got to ask some questions. What does the data say? Please never forget what the data says. It's really important. And we've got to keep in our mind, how should the organization be designed to be fit for purpose in 2022? We've got to be looking into the future. We have got to be on the front foot. The very best HR practitioners do that. And we need to make sure that digital technology acts as an enabler for us and enables us to look fantastic in the world of HR, in the new world that we're no doubt having to be operating in. That's me for my session. I recently wrote a book called Introduction to People Analytics, and within it, I talk very passionately, I think, about the future of HR. And as you can see on the right-hand side there, it's about many different things. I think one of the critical things we've been doing is we've been educating and we've been coaching leaders and managers through this situation, and we must continue to do that. But we have many challenges ahead of us, which are around employee experience, about technology, about productivity, and about how we use data. The opportunities exist out there. We've just got to take them. So I wish every one of you the greatest of success in these very challenging times. I hope you found that of some interest, and I look forward to speaking with some of you a little bit later.